This is required watching, where we watch the essential films from a list of cinematic influencers and look at them through the lens of learning about filmmaking and how to move forward. I'm your host, Trey Epps, and today we are going to talk about something a little bit different. As you can tell, we're trying to mix things up and not just talk about straight up old Hollywood movies and not talk about just current films. We're trying to mix up genres, trying to mix up the kind of movies that we do watch and review and talk about. But today we're going to talk about a documentary because I cannot remember the last time we did one of these. It's one that ignited a powerful conversation about representation and stereotypes. This documentary is The Problem with Apu. The Problem with Apu was directed by comedian Hari, and he has a last name that I'm not going to butcher because I ain't going to do him like that. And it explores the legacy and impact of the character Apu from The Simpsons. The documentary sparked a vital discussion about representation of South Asian characters in popular media and perpetuation of racial stereotypes. The legacy of The Problem with Apu lies in its abilities to raise awareness and challenge the prevailing stereotypes that had persisted for decades. By examining the character of Apu, the film sheds light on the harmful effects of charactered portrayals and how they can contribute to the marginalization and stereotyping of particular ethnic groups. The documentary became a catalyst for change, pushing for more authentic and nuanced portrayals of diverse communities in the entertainment industry. Recently, everything's kind of been the same, with the exception of, I think, South Asian communities very specifically. And that makes me really, really sad. I'm sad. I don't often see myself any differently from someone who's Asian than any other person of color. Just to speak plainly, I feel proud. I feel represented. I feel seen because it isn't from the same perspective as the straight white man. Or, listen, I know, yeah, it's not, I'm not going to say anything incriminating on here, but so when it comes to this documentary, when it comes to the lack of representation on screen, it infuriates me to no end because I know that I have stories that people want to watch. I know that I have stories that people can relate to. It's not made with a certain like secret sauce of someone who maybe has a very different perspective or background. Like I often talk about shows that inspire me, like Rami and Atlanta and Insecure and stuff like that. And then I have to realize that each year that passes, each month that passes, those three shows are becoming older and older and older. And the point of reference and people being able to remember them are like slowly like going away. So I feel like, you know, these shows will be relegated to something like that, where it's going to be considered classic or retro at a certain point. The Problem with Apu had a large impact on the filmmakers and filmmaking that cannot be understated. It sparked crucial conversations within the industry and compelled creators and decision makers to reflect on the responsibility they had in shaping representation on screen. It brought issues of diversity, cultural sensitivity, and the power of media to the forefront, fostering a more inclusive and critical approach to storytelling. Following the release of the documentary, the impact was far-reaching. It prompted conversations not only within the industry, but among audiences worldwide. It propelled discussions about representation, cultural appropriation, and the importance of authentic storytelling. Not to mention that Hank Azaria eventually stepped down as voicing Apu. Where are we drawing the line, right? Like Hank Azaria doesn't do Apu, but we don't very often talk about the dubbed actors who are translating or dubbing their voices of from around the world. Is that a different can of worms? I don't think so, but I don't know if those people get the same considerations. I'm not sure if we care about people who dub voices, and that's a shame. I worked on a commercial that needed VO for a black mom and like a Asian like uncle kind of figure, or like, you know, whatever. It was like very, very much like specific to race and everything else. And we got a few submissions and I started to narrow it down. And I was like, I think these two people should be considered. And so I was like, oh, this person, like we hear this person all the time. They're always winning things. And I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, oh, she's like a young white woman, right? And I was like, what? Yeah, she's a young white woman, and she submitted for like this black. It's mind blowing, and it's a ridiculous game to play. But I think when it comes to representation on screen, we usually look at like faces, and don't look at like the people who are behind the voices. How often are you watching something dubbed and think about if that person is the same ethnicity of the person they're dubbing? Again, does that matter to you? I think it should. Anyways, off track, but on track. To lend depth and authenticity to to the exploration of representation and stereotypes, the film and the filmmakers, of course, incorporate personal anecdotes from individuals who have been affected by these portrayals through interviews and personal narratives. The documentary offers firsthand accounts of the impact of stereotypes on the lives of South Asian individuals. Additionally, expert analysis and commentary from scholars, activists, and media professionals provide a broader perspective on the issue of enriching the conversation with academic and industry insights. The film also has a profound impact as it validates the experiences of South Asian communities and their concerns regarding misrepresentation of their culture and identity. There's a bit of a segment in it where they talk to a lot of South Asian actors, and they say, and they point out that Apu says, "Thank you, come again." I may be miscounting this or misremembering this, but like no less or no more than 10 times. I think it was something like 5 or 8 times or something like that he's ever said it in the 20 some odd years of the series. And each one of them, coming from vastly different places in the world, have had someone repeat that back to them as an insult, repeat that back to them as something offensive. Honestly, just goes to show that just because you're not saying something racist per se doesn't mean you're not saying something racist. You know what I mean? Just because you're not calling someone a racial slur doesn't mean you're not being offensive. The documentary has empowered individuals to voice their dissatisfaction with harmful stereotypes and the demand for more accurate and nuanced portrayals. It's also sparked the conversations within South Asian communities about the importance of representation and the effects of media and cultural perceptions. I will end this by saying again, I think you should watch something like this. I think Modern Love with Aziz Ansari. I think he has an episode. I'm pretty sure I'm misremembering the name of that series, but great episode. Actually, the series has a lot to do about identity. Yeah. Not to be too hyperbolic, maybe. Kind of like Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer had to work on the hydrogen bomb, not only for science, like in the name of science, but also to beat the Nazis from doing it themselves. Hopefully, yeah, from themselves. And I think the consequence of that is now everyone's armed with these bombs that can end the world. It kind of almost has not almost, but it definitely has a really negative result as a consequence of, despite the goal of trying to do something for the betterment of you. And I think that is what we have to consider as filmmakers, as creators, is while The Simpsons is a really funny show, landmark show that will go down in the history books forever and ever, the consequences of that show and just a single piece of that show is Apu. And again, doesn't say thank you, come again very much, but it's been weaponized to hurt feelings of people who look like Apu, and that's fucked up. I'm not saying that I'm not saying I don't get that. I get that. There's a very real thing of black people not wanting to eat watermelon in front of white people. Like that's crazy and true. I don't eat watermelon in public. I don't. Which is not related to any particular show as much as it's just the general stereotypes and misconceptions about people, and I refuse to continue to tell people that Africa is not a country. Anyways, the point of me saying all of this and going yet on another rant is, despite people being able to have fun with the things that we create, we do have a power and a responsibility to be able to do our best with that. And I don't think that it was the intention of anyone at The Simpsons to create such a misrepresentation or to hurt the feelings or to shame South Asians, but they also didn't do much when it was brought to their attention. We can claim that it was another time when the show was created, but we should have known better. when it came to their attention, they should have done something about it. They didn't, and eventually something happened, in part because of this documentary. So, on one hand, our media has the ability to hurt people and take them down. On the other hand, our media, such as this documentary, has the ability to enlighten and take people down where needed. And it's important to know that our media can be weaponized, even if we are not trying to weaponize it, and also that it can be a weapon. It can say something that's important for people to listen to and latch on to. Anyways, I've gone on far too much. If you made it this far, let me just say we are doing a giveaway. So subscribe to the podcast or to the YouTube channel, and leave a 5-star review if you're listening on the podcast, or leave a comment if you're watching on the YouTube, and just tell me about your favorite film. Tell me what you like about the podcast. Let's continue this film watching community, filmmaking community, and keep things going. Thank you very much for staying on for this long. I know I ramble a lot with things I'm really passionate about, but things will be changing. We'll have a new co-host, and it'll be wild. So until next time, peace.